Welcome back to Doc's Projects. Got one more thing that I've been working on. I don't know if I'd showed you this before or not, but I decided to put a little turtle with epoxy built into some wood. I got this wood for free. Somebody was throwing away a piece of old furniture and it had a couple of pieces of wood that were pretty good on it. I think it was like a dark walnut. And I got the other side, so I'll be cutting this down, doing the same kind of an idea to it. And what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to be making a dragonfly. So we go from this to this. Ain't that pretty? I thought it turned out pretty good. So please leave me a comment if you like the way these turned out. If you like these videos, leave me a comment, let me know. And also subscribe and like, I really appreciate it. Doesn't cost you anything, so punch that button. Enjoy watching me build this. Show you the details here coming up. Tape down the paper so it doesn't move. Put the carbon paper under it. Make sure you've got the carbon side down. Just follow along the best you can. Around all the dark spots. And using a ballpoint pen works really well. All done. Then you flip it up before you take the tape off. You take a look. Hopefully you can see where I've got the pattern now. So, does it look like a dragonfly yet? Now I can remove this piece. So you can see I got to go through each hole like that, but as you can see, it comes out pretty good there. So now I won't bore you by doing them all on film. That'd make the film way too long, but I'll go ahead and cut the rest of these out. I'll have to use the small rounded, by round I mean instead of flat blade like this. Might be hard to focus in on, but you can see the difference there. This one is a wide blade. That's better for strength, less chance of it breaking. These break quite frequently. I might go through 3 or 4 of these every time I do a project like this. So I'm going to sand this down nice, get down to the nice wood, and then I'll be getting ready to put the epoxy on it. Okay, well I've been sanding on this, using the orbital sander. Now keep in mind, something I want you to know, this is important. The orbital sander will be circular, so when you're sanding with the coarser part to really get down to the wood, get rid of the old finish, it's going to leave little tiny swirl marks that you won't be able to see unless you look at it real close. But when you put a finish on it, it becomes super evident. You see all these little tiny swirl marks. You don't want those. But one of the most important things is once you're done sanding it down to the point where you want it with the orbital sander, you want to take something like this and use that to go with the grain. And that way you got straight little tiny lines, and you go to a finer and finer sandpaper. I'd recommend going down to at least a 400, maybe even an 800. 400 grit. Before you put the epoxy in, anytime you're working with wood and the epoxy wants to soak into the wood. It's very thirsty wood and it'll suck in, and all these little bubbles will come up, and you'll have a problem with bubbles in your epoxy. And that can ruin your whole project, make you throw it away. That's no good. So you want to make sure that you put a nice finish on here to seal up all those pores. I use like a polyurethane spray, and I spray it real good to get a good coverage in here before I put the epoxy in. Time to sign it. Not bad, eh? I put a little screw gently into that top hole. This is on the back side. That's the forward side that you'll be seeing. This will be the back side where I put my little emblem. Put a rope to it. I'm going to tie it up here. So I have the fan going. I got the garage door open. I want to make sure you got good ventilation. And that's it. Well, it's hard to believe in Arizona, but it's a cold day today. It's in the mid-50s. I want to make sure that this gets up to about 80 degrees worth. So I'm taking both the resin and the hardener, and I'm putting them in front of this heater for a little while. My next step is I'm going to take some packing tape And I'm going to put the packing tape across the back side here. So as you can see, I've got this set up. I did the taping on the back side to keep the epoxy from flowing on through. I've got it nice and level. I've got a couple boards here that I can set this whole melamine board on top of. Put a couple of boards on the outside just here to help hold it down nice and firm. Again, just to make sure that I don't lose a lot of epoxy down through there. Now my next step, of course, is to, once the epoxy is warmed up properly, I'll go ahead and mix up a small batch first, and I'm going to put in just a small layer to the bottom of each one of these, maybe like 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so I got a nice even little coating all across the bottom there. In the picture that I'm trying to copy, I noticed that the center part of the body right here had the darker purplish blue around the outside and lighter on the inside. So what I did, I took some of the blue and I put it in here so I can dab it with the toothpick, and then using the toothpick very carefully the outside edge. Try to avoid the middle. Okay, so a little bit at a time, I'm mixing up some colors that are going to go through the variations of the wings, and I'm just very carefully kind of like dribbling it into the area where I want this color to go. Okay, now I'm going to do a little bit of greenish. Do my next one. I'll come back when I go to do that. Okay, you might see I dribbled a little bit of green in there. Do a little bit more in a bit, but I'm trying to do it in layers because I want them to all kind of flow together, not on top of each other. So now I'll put in the orange towards the bottoms of the wings. Starting to set up. I feel a little bit of tension as I'm pulling the toothpick through it, so it's getting ready to harden on me. That'll be nice. And I can work on the next layer once this is more solid. So it's darker around the outside, lighter blue will shine through with the light. So I'm going to let that sit for a little bit. This is why I do the clear coat on the top, so as I'm trying to clean this up, I'm not really mixing any colors together, because the colors are underneath the clear coat. Okay, I'm going to come around and show you some different angles here so you can see all the colors. So now I'm going to go over this to smooth this out. Mostly I'm not going to sand it down too far, I'm just going to sand it down enough to where I scuff it up really good, get the epoxy that came onto the wood out of there and bring it down to this part. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hey Doc, you're making it ugly. What the heck?
Shine, shine, shine.
What are you doing? You're making it ugly. It's okay. Don't worry about it, folks. After I get this all done, pour the new epoxy on it, that's going to become all nice and clear again. It'll be like magic, so keep watching. Don't yell at me. Here we go. So I'm going back and forth with the grain with a 400 grit. going back and forth with that. The part where you see where it got flattened, I guess you call it, like a flat, not a shiny, that's where I actually hit the epoxy as I'm making it become smooth with the wood. Where it's still somewhat shiny, or a little bit scratched up, is where it was depressed a little bit. So that's okay, because it's going to fill in with the top epoxy. So I'll bring you back to see what I'm doing the next time. Okay, so I got done sanding with the orbital sander. Finished getting rid of some of these little spots. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to need some alcohol to put on here. And when I do that, you're going to magically see all this come back to life again. And it'll come back to life even more once I do the epoxy. So now it's time for the alcohol.
I'll drink to that.
Not that alcohol. That's for in case I really screw something up. That's for later. Let me get that out of here. Give you the wrong idea. Isopropyl alcohol. I don't know if you can still read that writing on there, but this is isopropyl alcohol. That's what I'm going to use to wipe it down to get rid of all the dust and help me to see if there's any imperfections, if I need to go any further or not. So. And then I'll spray it with this. Watch the magic happen on these wings. Whoa. Did you all say whoa? John, Sally, Fred, did you guys all say whoa? Okay, that's what I was waiting for. Now with this, it helps me to see what the color of the wood's going to look like when it gets dampened with the epoxy later. The trick with epoxy, as I mentioned before, is got to make sure the epoxy is warm. I like to have it at least in the area of around the 80-degree range. Make sure that it's nice and level. As you can see, we're looking pretty darn level in all different directions. Mixing up the epoxy. Now, as I mix up the epoxy, I'm trying to go in swirls and not so much up and down. If I go up and down, it causes the air to go down into it and creates a lot of large bubbles. So now I'm just going to use my gloved fingers, and you might notice that I got the wax paper down here and I folded up the edges, so if I have a little left over, it can catch it. Liking it so far. What do you think? It's also a good time to say, hey, I really like that. I'm going to like this video and I'm going to subscribe. Good time for that right now, right? Doesn't cost you anything. Hit that button. Someplace you'll find where there's maybe a little speck of dust or something that falls in there, so try to sneak it out. After I've torched it a couple times and kind of pull out some little specks of dust that I can see, I use a little toothpick. Helps to pull those things out. So now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to hit it with a torch every 15-20 minutes or so. If I see a need for it, I'm going to put something across the top here to help protect it from things settling down on it. And I'll keep hitting it with the toothpick as long as I still can. Bring it up a little closer here so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Those little knobs right there, I'll get those knocked off after a little bit. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Appreciate it, guys. Okay, well, I think it's time to check it out. It's the next day. What do you think? I think that turned out pretty good. So now I'm just going to do a little cleanup on it, wipe down a couple of things, and it'll be ready to put in the box for a gift. Oh, that's pretty, isn't it? Digging that. All right, well, we're all done. Hope you enjoyed. Please, if you haven't already, push that button to subscribe and like, and let me know if you enjoy this. We'll do some more different kinds of things like this. Kind of fun what you can do with epoxy, isn't it?